At my sister's engagement dinner, my place card said "The Failure" in neat cursive, gold trim, right there beside the crystal glasses and folded napkins. Everyone saw it. No one said a word. My name is Vanessa, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever watched a room full of people you grew up with, people who once kissed your scraped knees and sang you lullabies, sit still while you were humiliated? That night, they laughed. My sister Bianca giggled behind her champagne flute. Her fiancé, Thomas, gave a low whistle and said, "Wow, you guys are savage." Uncle Darius slapped the table and roared, "Aunt Lydia?" She read it out loud and clutched her chest like it was the joke of the century. "The Failure," she cackled. "Who comes up with this stuff?" Only one person didn't laugh. Me. I stared at that card for 5 whole seconds. Long enough for my wine to settle. Long enough for the rage to cool into something sharper. I raised my glass, stood slowly, and said, "To family, the kind you learn to live without." Silence. Tense. Brittle. I held their stunned expressions for a breath longer, then placed the glass gently on the tablecloth, turned, and walked out of the room. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because outside that hotel ballroom, something shifted in me. Not a snap. A release. The truth? I had paid for the venue, booked the dinner, covered the down payment for Bianca's custom ring when Thomas's card accidentally declined. I arranged the caterer, even loaned my sister the car she drove to the event. But none of it mattered. To them, I was the convenient wallet, the safety net, the one who never lived up to her potential but always footed the bill. They didn't just mock me. They did it on a night I paid for. And they expected me to swallow it with a smile. Instead, I walked outside, handed my valet ticket to the attendant, and reclaimed my name. Because that car was mine. And as I slid into the driver's seat and pulled away from the curb, I made one quick call to my assistant. "Hi, yes. Cancel the banquet hall, the bridal suite, and the floral delivery for Saturday." All of it was under my name. "Understood," she replied. "Anything else?" "Yes. Call the caterer. Tell them to sell the food elsewhere. And put the cancellation fee on the bride's card." "The card you added to the file for emergencies?" "Exactly that one." I hung up. Let them toast to that. I wasn't the failure. I was the foundation. And they had just stomped on the only thing keeping their celebration afloat. They thought they could humiliate me without consequence. They forgot who wrote the checks. This wasn't rage. This was receipt-based revenge. And I was just getting started. You don't wake up and become the failure overnight. It takes years of silent disrespect, subtle erasure, and twisted narratives passed around the dinner table like dessert. Growing up, I was the dependable one. The kid who followed rules, brought home A's, stayed quiet when others screamed. Bianca, my younger sister, was the wild card, charming, chaotic, impulsive. She wrecked 3 cars before she was 21, failed out of college twice, and somehow still got a standing ovation when she landed a basic marketing internship. Me? I built a career from scratch. Started a consulting firm that survived the pandemic and a recession. Paid off our parents' mortgage by 30. But every Thanksgiving, I was asked the same question. "Still single, Vanessa?" And if I mentioned work, "You really should focus more on your personal life. You don't want to end up alone." They didn't care that I was successful, because success, in their eyes, didn't count unless it was worn loud, flashy, Instagrammable. Bianca gave them chaos they could romanticize. I gave them stability they could use and overlook. She brought drama. I brought checks. When my mother got sick, it was me who moved back in, rearranged her medication, scheduled appointments, argued with insurance. Bianca would visit for 20 minutes, post a selfie by mom's bed, then disappear until the next crisis. Still, my parents called her the light of the family. I was the strong one. That label sounds like a compliment until you realize it just means no one will come check on you. When my firm landed its first $500,000 client, I told my father, hoping for a flicker of pride. He nodded absently and asked, "Have you thought about freezing your eggs?" It was never about my success. It was about my failure to conform. And when Bianca got engaged, it was like the family had found a new religion. Suddenly, my mother was glowing again. My father started talking about legacy. Every group chat lit up with dress options, ring photos, and our princess is finally settling down. Nobody asked how it was being funded. They just assumed someone else would pay. And I did. Because that's what I'd always done. The venue? My corporate discount. The catering deposit? Covered it. Bianca's engagement ring? I wired the funds when Thomas said he needed a few extra days to move money around. None of it was framed as sacrifice. It was framed as expectation. So when I walked into that engagement dinner, I knew I wasn't the star. I didn't want to be, but I didn't expect humiliation. I didn't expect to find that card. The failure. It wasn't a joke. It was a message. A reminder of the role they had cast me in. Dependable. Forgettable. Expendable. And finally, I'd had enough. Because when you spend your life keeping the house from burning down, eventually you realize it's not your job to rebuild what they've decided to burn. Sometimes the only power move left is walking away with the matches. The morning after the dinner, my phone lit up with missed calls. 23, to be exact. Texts followed. Bianca, was that really necessary? Mom, Vanessa, stop being dramatic. It was a harmless joke. Thomas, you've left us in a really tough position. We're trying to fix things. Can we talk? Dad, we need to discuss this like adults. Not one of them said they were sorry. No one asked if I was okay. They were just stunned that I'd done the unthinkable, set a boundary. I ignored the messages, but something kept gnawing at me. The card. The smirks. The coordinated cruelty of it all. That card didn't magically appear on the table. Someone ordered it. Someone planned it. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't spontaneous mockery. It was a setup. I went back through the group text I'd been reluctantly added to during the engagement planning. The Vanessa will take care of it thread. I scrolled through months of messages, screenshots, links. Everything I'd been voluntold to handle. Then I saw it. A message from Bianca to her maid of honor, days before the dinner. OMG, wait till she sees her place card. Loudly crying face, I'm crying already. Tell Thomas to get it printed before Thursday. Gold trim, cursive, just like the others except you know. Followed by a laughing emoji. I stared at the screen. So, it wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't something one petty cousin did in a moment of stupidity. It was intentional. It was planned. Shared. Laughed about in advance. And they let me pay for it. I was footing the bill for my own public execution. Worse still, I remembered overhearing Bianca on the phone with the event planner 2 days prior. She was laughing in that high, glassy voice she used when she wanted to be taken seriously. Yeah, my sister's the responsible one, she said. Basically my unofficial maid of honor/bank. I hadn't flinched then. But now I felt it, all of it, settle like lead in my chest. They didn't just disrespect me. They built their celebration on top of me like I was some kind of invisible scaffolding. Like I didn't have power. Like I wouldn't notice. Like I wouldn't remember. I reached out to my assistant and asked her to confirm the list of reservations still under my name. She sent back a spreadsheet. It was worse than I thought. The reception hall. The catering. The honeymoon suite. The bachelorette weekend spa package. All charged to me. All scheduled under accounts they assumed I'd forget to check. I sat with that for a long time. Not angry. Not even hurt anymore. Just awake. This wasn't just about a card. This was about years of erasure. They never thought I'd fight back. Because I'd been conditioned to believe that being the strong one meant swallowing my rage and picking up the check. But they forgot something. I didn't get where I am by accident. I built everything they lean on. And now, I was pulling the plug. Because sometimes, power doesn't look like screaming in someone's face. Sometimes it looks like saying nothing and quietly burning down the parts of the bridge you own. I didn't cancel everything at once. That would have been loud, emotional, predictable. Instead, I let the clock tick quietly while I built my response like a strategy deck. First, I instructed my assistant to reassign the event venue's remaining balance to Bianca. No email notice. Just a quiet update on the system that would alert her 3 days before the final payment was due. Then the florist. I contacted them personally and explained I was no longer sponsoring the event. I recommended they request full payment immediately or walk away. I even CC'd Bianca with a subject line, "Best of luck finalizing the flowers."
She didn't respond.
She called instead. I let it ring. Then I did the same with the DJ, the decorator, and the hotel where they'd booked the honeymoon suite on my corporate card. All of them had agreements tied to my accounts, my name, my access. They'd taken it all for granted. So I took it back. Each call ended with a professional, courteous line. Unfortunately, due to recent developments, I'll no longer be covering the event. Kindly redirect all invoices to the bride and groom. No anger. No explanation. Just business. The bachelorette spa package was the most fun. I had prepaid for the entire weekend as a surprise. 3 nights in a luxury resort, full-body massages, champagne brunches, everything Bianca had boasted about to her friends like it came from Thomas. So I contacted the resort and canceled the group reservation. On the day they were supposed to arrive, they stood at the check-in desk and were told, "There's no booking under this name." The reservation was canceled by the cardholder. Tara, one of Bianca's less cruel bridesmaids, texted me, "Did you cancel the spa weekend? They're freaking out. I don't want to get involved, but damn. That's cold." I replied, "Not cold. Calculated. Also, tell her to try gratitude next time. Because here's the thing, I wasn't trying to destroy the wedding. I was trying to remind them whose foundation they stood on. You don't get to humiliate the person paying your bills. You don't get to write the failure on a card and expect the so-called failure to keep funding your fantasy. They made me invisible for years. But money leaves footprints. And when mine disappeared, so did their plans. The final move came with perfect timing. I called my bank and withdrew the $15,000 I had sitting in a family emergency fund I'd opened years ago, originally intended to support my parents if anything happened to them. They never used it. But now they had quietly given Bianca access, just in case she needed a little cushion during the wedding planning. I emptied the account. That same evening, my mother called. Her voice was tight, brittle. "Vanessa," she said, "did you move the funds from the joint family account?" I paused. Then I said, "Oh, you mean the account for the daughter, who never fails?" She didn't answer. "I figured the failure shouldn't be responsible for the family's emergencies anymore," I added. "Vanessa," she snapped, "this isn't the time to be petty." I hung up, not in anger, in peace, because for the first time in years, they had to figure out life without me. And that was the beginning of the end for them. The real chaos started on Thursday morning. Bianca called me 13 times. Left voicemails ranging from fake apologies to full-blown screaming matches with herself. Her final message was the most revealing. "You always think you're so clever, but you're bitter, jealous. This wedding is still happening, with or without you." I smiled when I heard it, because the part she didn't know? It wasn't happening. Not like she thought. That afternoon, the event planner called me directly. Her voice was tight with panic. "Vanessa, I've worked with your family for years. I just got off the phone with Bianca and Thomas. They say you're sabotaging them." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't apologize. I just said, "I'm stepping back from things I was never thanked for." That's not sabotage. That's boundaries. There was a pause on the line. Then, honestly, good for you. By Friday, the venue was locked. Bianca had missed the reissued deposit deadline. Her card declined. The manager told me she sobbed at the front desk, begging for a grace period. There was none. The reception hall was already rebooked to a pharmaceutical company's quarterly gala. The banner out front read, "Building toward the future." Poetic. The hotel suite was released to the public. Someone else snagged it before Bianca even got to the front desk. Her bridesmaids texted me a blurry photo of her, sitting on the floor of the lobby, mascara streaked down her cheeks, muttering, "She's ruining my life." But I wasn't ruining anything. I was simply removing myself. And when the caterer called her that night to confirm that final payment was now overdue, she broke. She finally called me, not screaming, just whispering, "Why are you doing this?" I paused, then answered, "You taught me something, Bianca. You taught me that kindness in our family is seen as weakness. So, I'm correcting the imbalance." She started crying. I didn't. Because this wasn't revenge. This was recalibration. I had spent my entire life being the fix-it girl. The one who showed up,
Paid.
supported, smiled through gritted teeth while being belittled, overlooked, and used. And for what? To be labeled the failure? To be mocked in front of everyone? To have my contributions buried under their champagne and confetti? No more. That night, I went out to dinner. Alone. A small French place downtown. My phone vibrated on the table, texts pouring in from my mother, father, uncles, aunts. "What are you doing? This isn't how family behaves. You're embarrassing us." I silenced the notifications. Then my assistant called. "Hey," she said, "we just got a notification. Someone tried to log into your business PayPal. From your sister's email." I exhaled slowly. Shut it down. Already done. I sipped my wine. Let them scramble. They'd built their celebration on stolen grace. And now the scaffolding was gone. The party was canceled. The vendors pulled out. The guests received last-minute postponement emails with vague excuses about a family emergency. But the real emergency was that the woman they had always dismissed had finally walked away. And now, they were free-falling. Without me. By Saturday morning, my family was in full meltdown mode. The hotel ballroom sat empty, tables unset, staff waiting for a bride who would never arrive. Guests began trickling in, dressed to the nines, only to be met with confused faces and locked doors. The whispers started instantly. "Wasn't the wedding today? Is she okay? Did he call it off?" I heard something about money issues. And like wildfire, the truth spread. My cousin Marcus, who'd flown in from Atlanta, posted a cryptic Instagram story. "When the family clown turns out to be the one running the circus. #plot twist." Meanwhile, Bianca was unraveling. One of her friends forwarded me a video from the morning. She was standing outside the venue, screaming into her phone, barefoot, her veil slipping off her bun. She did this. My sister did this. She took everything. She wasn't wrong. But I hadn't taken anything that was hers. I simply reclaimed what was mine. The final nail in the coffin came when Thomas's parents pulled him aside and asked some hard questions. "Why did your fiancée rely on her sister to pay for everything? You're an investment banker, aren't you? If she can't manage a wedding, how will she manage a household?" By the time Sunday rolled around, the engagement was on pause. Not officially broken, but certainly cracked. And my parents? They showed up at my condo unannounced. My father stood there, fists balled at his sides. My mother's lips were trembling with whatever speech she had rehearsed in the car. "You humiliated us," he said. "I didn't invite them in. I stood at the door." "You let them call me a failure," I replied. "At a table I paid for. In a room I arranged. For a woman I carried on my back for years." My mother opened her mouth. Closed it. "You made a mockery of your sister's future." Dad tried again, but his voice faltered. "Wrong," I said, calm and steady. "I exposed the mockery you all made of mine." I handed him a manila envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Receipts," I said. "Every payment I made for your precious daughter's dream wedding. It totals just over $38,000. I've itemized it for your convenience." He turned red. "You're charging your own family?" "I'm forgiving the debt," I said. "But I'm keeping the record." Then I shut the door. Not angrily, not violently, but firmly. And I leaned against it as their shadows faded from my doorstep. They never saw me as family. Just a tool. A resource. A fallback plan. But now the plan had changed. Later that night, I received a message from Grandma, the only one who never laughed at that dinner. It said, "Proud of you, baby. Maybe now they'll learn how much weight you were really carrying." And in that moment, I exhaled everything I'd been holding in for years.
The pain.
The guilt. The endless need to prove myself.
Gone.
Because their collapse wasn't just a result of what I did. It was a consequence of what they never did.
Appreciate me. Respect me.
Protect me. And now that the rug had been pulled out, they were left with the truth. I wasn't the failure. I was the foundation. And when the foundation walks away, the whole house comes crashing down. For the first time in years, I felt light. Lighter than the debt I'd paid. Lighter than the silence I'd kept. Lighter than the invisible weight of trying to earn a place in a family that only valued what I could do for them, not who I was. I poured all the energy I used to give away into myself. And it showed. My firm expanded. A Fortune 100 company signed a retainer contract. I hired 5 new analysts and finally promoted my assistant, the same one who helped pull the strings during my quiet storm, to operations director. She cried when I told her. "You taught me more in 6 months," she said, "than I learned in 4 years of college." I bought myself a new apartment. Nothing over the top. Just open windows, warm wood, and silence that healed. I joined a weekly boxing class, not to fight the world, but to finally feel the power I'd been hiding in my body all these years. And friends, real ones, found me. One of the guests at Bianca's failed wedding, someone I barely remembered, reached out. Her name was Ellie, a quiet girl from our childhood block.
She said,
"I saw what they did to you, and I saw how you walked away. I don't know if you remember this, but when we were 12, you gave me your shoes after I stepped in the mud before picture day. You've always been someone people step on, but you're also someone who always stands up." We met for coffee. She introduced me to people, kind people, friends who didn't care about what I owned or how much I gave. People who didn't call me strong like it was a leash. People who simply said, "You're enough." I started mentoring girls from disadvantaged communities, not out of guilt, but because I finally had something to give that wasn't being stolen from me. My Sundays became mine again. No forced family brunches. No performative check-ins. Just books.
Jazz.
Journaling.
Peace.
I thought about Bianca sometimes. Not with rage. Not with resentment. But with clarity. She wasn't born a villain. She was raised in a system that rewarded her cruelty and taught her that my silence was consent. But I'd broken that system now. And in its place, I was building something better. Not a new version of me. Just the real one. And when people asked why I looked so calm these days, I told them the truth. Because I stopped bleeding for people who never wanted to heal. I didn't need revenge to feel whole. I needed release. And that's what I gave myself. One soft, powerful, glorious boundary at a time. 3 months passed before I saw any of them again. It was at Grandma's 80th birthday. I almost didn't go. But she'd sent a handwritten card. "No pressure, baby," it said. "But I'd like to see the woman you became." So I came. Not out of obligation, but from strength. I wore a simple black jumpsuit. No labels, no designer bag, just presence. Calm. Rooted presence. The moment I walked into the hall, the air shifted. Conversations quieted. Glasses paused mid-sip. Bianca turned and stared like she'd seen a ghost. She looked thinner, paler. Thomas wasn't at her side. Someone whispered they'd postponed indefinitely. Mom approached me halfway through the buffet line. She had on pearls and a new smile, the fake kind you wear when you need something. She touched my arm gently and said, "You look well." I looked her dead in the eyes. "I am." Dad stood behind her, nodding stiffly like we were strangers at a board meeting. Bianca never spoke to me that night.
But she watched me.
Every time someone came up to hug me, thank me, ask for my card. She watched it all. When Grandma gave her toast, she looked right at me and said, "Some people give gold. Others give their spine." I've learned to value the second more. To Vanessa, who taught me that silence isn't always grace. Sometimes it's survival. The whole room clapped. I didn't. I just smiled. After the party, I headed to the valet. My cousins were outside, laughing about something. One of them nudged the other and said, "Still driving that same car, huh?" Right then, my phone buzzed. It was my assistant. Jet's ready. You'll be in the air in 40 minutes. I raised my voice just loud enough for them to hear and said into the phone,
Great.
Tell the pilot I'll be there after one stop. The laughter stopped.
Just like that.
I nodded politely, stepped into my car, that same car, and drove off with a peace they could never purchase. Because the truth is, I don't need them to understand what they lost. I don't need them to apologize, or regret, or beg. I need only this, to keep walking forward while they sit in the ruins of the little kingdom they built on my back. They crown me the failure. But I was never theirs to define. And now, they can choke on their silence. Because I finally learned, you don't need revenge when you've already outgrown the war.